Hi, I'm Addison Presley.
And I'm Julie Brown.
And we're a part of SALT, our Student Ambassador Leadership Team. We're here with our Superintendent, Dr. Lesley Austin, and our CFO, Ms. Kathy Henderson. As ambassadors, we want to ask important questions and share information about how our school works.
Our goal is to help students, families, and our community better understand what's happening at Rockport-Fulton ISD.
We're excited to ask the big questions so everyone in our Power community can stay informed.
Hi, I'm Julie Brown, and I've been wondering, where does the money to run our schools come from?
Our school gets its money from two main sources, which I call revenue. We get it from property taxes, and we get it from the state of Texas. We also get some from the federal government.
Mm-hmm. Do schools have the same amount of money, or do some schools get more because they have more students, or because of how much their local communities can contribute?
Awesome. Well, so Texas has a school funding system that is set up so that all of our schools are funded equitably, regardless of where a student lives. So how they are funded to get that equitable amount is different. There's different weights, different calculations. And so remember what Ms. Henderson said, that you get local, state, and federal to run our schools. Our schools, though, are mostly funded by our local property taxes. And how much we can receive of that local property tax, well, it's limited by the state. They call it an entitlement. And when our local money goes over that entitlement set by the state, they actually do something like take our local money, and it's called recapture. We actually give over 17% of that money that comes in of that local property taxes to the recapture system of the state of Texas.
Addison here, and I want to know, what does our school spend the most money on?
Well, the most of our money goes to paying our teachers and staff. We also spend money on things like books, technology, podcast rooms, and keeping the school running with like our utilities, our lights, our water. We call these things maintenance and operations, the everyday things that we do that cost money.
Do things like sports, fine arts, and building maintenance all cost different amounts?
Yes, a bunch of different amounts. So we actually have to make choices about what to spend the money on first because of that. There are actually two buckets of how we spend money. I told you earlier things that we do every day are called maintenance and operations. We like to call that M&O. And those things like building a new school are paid for another bucket of money called INS, interest and sinking. When I first learned about this, I was like, INS, interest and sinking. But as I got into it a little bit more, it makes sense. So that's all things. INS are all things that we do with new facilities and the debt that we incur to build those. We sit down every year. We sit down with our board, our principals, our department leaders, and we talk about the needs of our district, both M&O and INS. Then we talk about the needs of our schools, then departments, and then all the way down to your teachers' classes. So after we talk about all the things that we need, we start building something that we call a budget. And that's how we know where to spend our money.
I've heard that our school is in something called a deficit, but what does that really mean?
See, a deficit happens when a school spends more money than it gets. Right now, our school has less money coming in because we have few students than ever before. Also, we have less revenue because our property taxes were compressed. That means lowered. And actually, we're receiving the same amount of money for each student than we did in 2019. And 2019 was a little bit less, cost less to live than it does now. We have a thing called inflation. And so being paid on the same price as 2019 doesn't work in 2025. I almost said 2024, but 2025 now. And so honestly, that was set in 2019. And we're hoping that something happens in our state legislation this year. They're in session right now to change that.
When all this comes together, that's when we operate a deficit. We have more expense than we do revenue. So we have to figure out how to cover the difference so we can keep our schools running.
I was also wondering, if we don't have enough money, how can we build a new school?
Building a new school is different from paying things like teachers and operations, like teachers and supplies, like maintenance and operations that Dr. Austin talked about. Building a new school is different from paying for things like teachers and supplies. Schools get money to build things through bonds, which is approved by the voters. They're like loans that we then have to pay back.
Yes. So remember what I had said, that INS? That's the money that can only be used for building those new schools or fixing schools, like upgrading schools. And it's not the same money that we use in M&O, the maintenance and operations, for those everyday things. So remember M&O, INS, the INS portion of the tax is how we pay for that new school if it's voted on by the community. And in 2022, we passed the Aransas County Bond 2022. I think that's what it says. Now we're called Rockport-Fulton, but used to be Aransas County ISD. A school bond can also pay for other things like HVAC, technology, transportation if we need new buses, and safety. And we always need a lot of that, especially technology. It's always changing.
All this is making me wonder, how can we get more money to help our school?
I love that question. So one way is through something that's called a voter-approved tax rate election. I like to say VATER, that's the acronym, and I like to speak in acronyms, but a voter-approved tax rate election is when our community comes together and asks for things like whether we can get more golden pennies. So let me explain that real quick. The state says we can have golden pennies. Remember, I said it's kind of like a formula, how we get all of our revenue. Before 2019, we were only allowed 6 golden pennies in that formula. In 2019, they voted that we could go up to 8 golden pennies. We've never asked for those 2 additional golden pennies, but we are at a time that we need those 2 additional golden pennies. So we would have to go to the community and ask for them to vote on giving us those 2 golden pennies. It increases the tax rate a little bit by 2 pennies. But remember what I had said, that our tax rate has been lowered. It's been compressed. We are actually one of the lowest around. And so if we go for 2 additional golden pennies, it's actually not an increase in our tax rate because of that compression. So our district would really love to ask for the 2 golden pennies to get Addison, like you said, more revenue for our school.
The community plays a big role in helping us get these funds we need. When everyone pitches in, it makes a huge difference for our schools and our students.
And I was also curious, if I wanted to learn more about our school's money, where could I look?
Our school shares information about our money and our finances through the district website and board meetings. Parents and communities can see how this money is being spent.
And if our students and families have more questions that we didn't cover today, they can always ask us school leaders. We have an email address that is called askapirate@rfisd.us. Please, we are always happy to explain all about school finance.
It's important for everyone to know how school money works so we can all be a part of the solution.
Absolutely. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Addison. Until next time, right?
Yes.